Hello everyone and welcome back to another edition of whatever the hell I'm calling this series of looks back, some previews and reviews of weekends of rugby action. So straight off the bat, that's a good start, a good place to start. I need a name for this series. I've had a few sessions already, but haven't really picked one and decided on a name to call these little chats that we have about what has happened in previous weekends of rugby. Now, there's a lot of action coming up over the next few months, none more so than the Rugby World Cup, which I really want to cover in all sorts of facets, kind of like this as well, because that would just be awesome to give you my views, a little bit of updates on what's happening, games around the globe as well, and in the World Cup. So if you've got an idea for a name, things you want to see on this little series, little conversations about what is going on in the rugby world, do let me know in the comments, hit me up on Twitter, all that sort of stuff. Straight off the whistle, hit the thumbs up if you enjoy these little discussions about what I think of the weekend of rugby action. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Our weekend is complete. For me, recording this right now, it is Sunday night and we've had a blockbuster weekend of action. We kicked things off with the first match, which saw the Wallabies travelling to Eden Park to face the All Blacks, which is a match I will be covering in more detail. That was a classic to start off. We also had England up against France, which is another one I got up in the wee small hours of just before 7 AM to watch that match. And then after that, it was the Springboks who travelled to Argentina to face a side to get a bit of a reprieve against a team that beat them last week. Those are the matches I'm going to be covering that I watched and witnessed over the last couple of days. Other matches to have taken place, and one which was quite interesting as well, was Japan up against the World 15, and I may mention a really good World 15 as well, full of Wallabies, full of ex-All Blacks as well, and noticeably so, Naivoro, the Australian winger who's Fijian, who's signed to go overseas in Scotland. He's done everything, but he's playing for this World 15. He scored 4 tries, I think, from memory, and absolutely dominated the Japanese side. The final score there was 45-20, a complete creaming from that World 15 side. They had a whole host of international talent as well. The other matches from the weekend saw Ireland and Scotland face off. A very interesting fixture that one was. 28-22 the final score. The Irish just getting over the line on that one. I did see bits and pieces of the end of that. Scotland were actually leading that one in the second half as well. So I think from what we were hearing before that match, I think that's a very good effort from the Scotsmen against, well, after last weekend, a side that a lot of people were fancying was Ireland as well. So from that game, which is probably the most interesting one that I didn't actually watch, there was 4 tries for the Irish to 3 by Scotland, but in the end it was down to the kicking of Madigan, who got all conversions as well to give them the 28 points. On the other side of the equation, Horn and Jackson getting just 1 apiece for the Scots, and Horn with a penalty, so missing a conversion and getting 1 less try. Not much in it between those two sides. It was pretty much full-strength teams for the Irish as well. A few bits and pieces players for the Scots. I'm not too sure about Greg Tonks, who they had at fly half, but that is a story for another day. Let's go through the matches that I actually witnessed myself over the last couple of days. We'll start off with the big one. The All Blacks at Eden Park, the fortress. And as I heard on an Australian news piece, the graveyard of the Wallabies. Eden Park is where this one kicked off. It decided the Bledisloe Cup winner take all. A draw for the All Blacks would have been enough, but no one wants a draw. This game had everything going on it, and it could have been a cracker, but it didn't really start off as many of the home fans would have liked. But before we get into the match, 142nd Test world record for Richie McCaw, most capped international player. Unbelievable player he is as well. Many of you hate him, many love him, but you cannot deny his longevity in the game as being one of the top players in world rugby. And I did see a thing, 142 tests, only 2 yellow cards, and yet everyone calls him a cheater. Go figure, but that is a bit biased from my end of things as well. So McCaw, world record, congrats to him. So the game kicked off, and I think it started off very much like the match last weekend played out the whole way. The All Blacks forced everything, offloads were flying, the players weren't really hitting a ruck and the ball pops out and hits you in the scone. That's stuff like that shouldn't really be happening, and it just started off and it made you think, wow, this could be a long night at the office and a really tough one for the All Blacks to get under their belt. They were kicking a lot of possession away, looking to play a big territorial game. It wasn't really working too well for them, especially when the Wallabies have someone like Israel Folau at the back that just catches everything that is thrown his way. So the All Blacks were messy. They gave the Wallabies a lot of ball, and Australia really had the biggest chance to score after just before the 20-minute mark. The All Blacks defence, I thought, was really, when that came into the core, they were huge on the fence, shut the Wallabies out for a good passage of time where the Wallabies really should have scored. And I think that was almost a turning of the switch to say, we're going to play a little bit better now. We're going to step up our defence. We're not going to give this one away. And then possibly what would have to be described as one of the best tries of the season already. Dane Coles, this man is a freak. He's a hooker, for goodness sake. He should not be outstepping and pacing Adam Ashley Cooper and scoring a try. It was a freakish try, another freakish try. We've seen a few of them already from Dane Coles, and it was another one just straight out of the top drawer. A huge defensive effort minutes before, and it's gone full Monty back the other way up the field and in for a Dane Coles special that was all made through Daniel Carter. Daniel Carter, oh, he is just getting right into his work at the right time. And how bad the defence on Nick White at the end there, going for a Hail Mary tackle on Dane Coles, and he got the big palm off. I think that was really what may have switched the All Blacks into gear and killed a bit of the Wallabies off at that point in time, which is just over halfway through the first half. The ABs, though, after that, they really changed gear, and you did see it straight away. They were stepping up. Ben Smith was making breaks. Victor Vito was absolutely brilliant in this match for the All Blacks. McCaw was making turnovers, and in the first 5 minutes after that try, the All Blacks made more turnovers than they did in the whole match the week before, which tells you something straight away. And I think the Wallabies were starting to sense what was going on as well, and things started to get a bit heated. There was a few bits of biffo breaking up. Liam Messam, the water boy, was getting involved as well. I don't know if we're going to hear more about that, but I don't think that's pretty frowned upon. A player not even in the team coming in off the sideline, getting involved in a bit of a scuffle, may get him in some hot water later on. But the ABs, as the match wore on, they got a lot better and they got a lot stronger, and they were definitely building into the game plan, which was so much different to last week. Even the rush defence was put on the shelf. I know Kieran Reid started it late in the second half when the game was already over, but that was such a big difference from last week. The whole game plan was completely different. Savia, I think, in that first half built up his... He's not to his best by any stretch of the imagination, but he was better. He was bumping people off. He was starting to pull through half gaps. He was speeding to the ball. He was looking for work, and I think that was a good sign. Daniel Carter, Julian Savia, Conrad Smith, Ma'anonu, the old hands are saying it's time to step it up, boys. Heading into a World Cup, and this is what we like to see here in New Zealand, that is for sure. But Australia, I think, was starting to feel the heat, starting to feel the pressure, and things were getting to them a bit. Right before the break, I know something that has been criticised by All Black fans from All Black sides in the past, the drop goal. Daniel Carter went for a bit of a miracle droppy right before halftime, right on halftime. It did go astray, but that made me think, this All Black side, they've got all bases covered come Rugby World Cup knockout time. If they're preparing drop goals at situations like that now, are we one step ahead of previous years? It's too early to tell, but stuff like that does make a statement. We went to half-time at that point, 13-6. The All Blacks led the match, and I think that was probably fair. The Wallabies were still definitely in it, but the way the All Blacks were playing late on in that second half definitely did look promising for the New Zealand fans in the crowd. The Wallabies, though, did look quite ominous for them as well, especially when they had a couple of injuries. Hooper went off for quite some time with seeing a concussion or a head knock or something like that. So they were starting to struggle. They were starting to look pretty ineffectual as well. The team that's always going forward, the team that has momentum, the players always look better, and the All Blacks were starting to really stand out. So we went into the second half and wow, it just exploded out of the halftime break. The ABs absolutely smashed it. They were awesome in attack with their forwards and backs combining brilliantly, and then they got possibly the definitive moment of the match and possibly of what could be a great season for them as well. It was Quade Cooper. You've all seen it if you're any sort of rugby fan. Quade Cooper, high shot on Aaron Smith when he's pretty much all but scored a try, penalty try, and a yellow card. Wow. Well, the Eden Park faithful really loved that, and they absolutely laid into Cooper, and that turned out to be his last act of the match as well. And as you've heard, if you've watched other rugby channels like the Scottish Canon as well, we did a piece just yesterday or the day before. There was some immense rage going on there at Quade Cooper's expense. Checkers come out after the match saying it's not his fault, you know, he wasn't fully to blame for the demise of the Wallabies, but let's be fair, the All Blacks were clicking, and Cooper's absence, you know, just that one-man absence has made the big difference. Just minutes after that, Ma'anonu, he started to really get singing and he crashed over, scored a brilliant try, just numbers overlapping. He's just looked so good, and with Conrad Smith as well, those two were looking superb, and another Nonu try, and well, all I could think at that point as well, sorry Australia, but you brought the All Blacks on here and they were just sombering away in the background, but you really pissed them off, and it just was not looking good for the Wallabies at all. The All Blacks continued to dominate and they destroyed everything the Wallabies did. Conrad Smith cashed in with a try of his own, and it just got worse and worse for the Wallabies. Nick White with an absolute horrific forward pass 5 metres out from his own line, and then you got a scrum feed, which ultimately led to more domination for the All Blacks. I think the Wallabies dominated the forward play in the first half, possibly the first 30 minutes as such, but after that we'll just show that the All Blacks are not a weak forward pack, and they absolutely destroyed the Wallabies scrum in the second half as well, multiple times. The forward battle was owned by Black, and there was no going back for the Wallabies. They were just done and dusted after that point. And this is what everyone expected from the All Blacks. This is the favourite. This is the team everyone should fear. And people started believing that they aren't the strong team they were in the past. Do they still think that? It's hard to say, because that was an emphatic display against the Wallabies. I think Victor Vito had possibly one of his best matches in a black jersey as well, for a man who's 50-50 is between him and Messam and Kaino as well. There's a lot of depth on the blind side, and then there's always a talk of Sam Cane and McCaw playing 6 and 7 as well. So Vito only did himself some great dues putting in a performance like that. Ma'anonu got back in the action again and scored another try. How good was he, and how good were these tries the All Blacks were sifting through? They were scoring some screamers from a long way away and just completely outclassing the Wallabies defensive line. Daniel Carter was superb. He was guiding that ship like he was Master General Captain, whatever you want to call him. He was outstanding throughout that match. Conrad Smith, another one I've mentioned already, he was brilliant. Richie McCaw was fantastic, and when he got substituted off for Sam Cane, well, I tell you, from a New Zealander's perspective, that was spine-tingling stuff to see a almost full Eden Park standing and applauding Richie McCaw on breaking that record of test matches. That is just spine-tingling stuff. And I thought that was just classy stuff from the crowd as well, to give him that applause and what is being said to be his last match in New Zealand, as he's always expected to retire after this season. The Wallabies did kind of come back into the game. They had some chances just after the hour mark, after their substitutes come on. They started to get something looking, but I think the All Blacks' defence was just too dominant, and Australia were back to how they looked in the first half of last weekend, where they just looked out of ideas. They were kicking away chances. They were just making mistakes, and it just all went bad. They were dropping the ball everywhere, and they just looked like they took 2 steps forward and 3 steps back over the last couple of weeks, which is disappointing for the whole world rugby kind of scene. But I think in the end, it was always expected that the All Blacks would pummel the Wallabies in this match. I think there was always a hope for ones that thought that this could be a close one, but the All Blacks, well, their hand was forced, and I think they were holding a lot back over the last 4 or 5 weeks. That's all come to a halt, I think, right there, bang. That is just crushing stuff, and the All Blacks will look to coast smoothly into their World Cup campaign, which they have no further matches until that first game against Argentina in the first round of Rugby World Cup 2015. So, big win for the All Blacks, a huge win for the New Zealanders, 41-13. That's dominance, that is domination, exactly the meaning of the word. They were classy, it was almost one of the best All Black performances I've seen. Backs against the wall, as New Zealand teams do. They come out and they destroy. So that was a great start to the night. The Wallabies, well, they've got Olympic back home. They still have a match against USA as well and build up to their Rugby World Cup. But I'm interested to see in the 31 they pick. The deadline for that is the 31st of August, which is 2 weeks away as I'm saying this. But, you know, there's a lot that was learned about that Wallabies team. A lot learned about the New Zealand side as well from those 2 matches. I think this World Cup is going to be sublime. It's going to be so exciting as well, which beautifully leads into my second match I witnessed. I was up nice and early at the break of dawn, just before 7 a.m. You know, who does that on a Sunday morning? I should be snuggled up in my bed. You know, that's for the week to do this sort of thing. But I really wanted to see England and France play this match out. I thought it was a very good English side and an extremely good French side. I think that was pretty much almost the best side France would put out. I think England, their forward pack left a lot to be desired, but I think their backline, bar Burgess, was probably what they will put out Rugby World Cup time, which was what I wanted to see. I was keen to see Burgess play as well, but I thought this was going to be a good guideline as to how these two sides looked heading into the World Cup from a different perspective. So, England versus France, and straight off the whistle, I got what I wanted to see. My first impression of Sam Burgess, as he just puts in an absolute crunching tackle, driving back Sarzuski a good 5 metres or so. He looked impressive straight off the whistle. Defensively, he was very good all match long as well, except for one little blip, which we'll get to later on. But I think defensively he was good. Didn't do much on attack, but, you know, he was solid, rock solid in defence in the centres. France were the ones who got the first real chance to score, and I thought they looked a better side for possibly the first 20 minutes or so, and they should have really scored there. Gattoon showed a huge amount of speed, just about pacing himself into the corner, but planted his arm down before the ball, just didn't really get his placement right, and somehow it was placed down by the English defender. But they were playing very well. France, they were fast. They were playing nicely as a team as well. Good passing and kicking across field. The continuity was looking outstanding between the forwards and the backs as well for France. They were looking good. I was thinking, well, England, you're in a bit of strife here, my old buddies. This French side is looking quite on top of their game. You know, they're so erratic sometimes, France, but they were looking quite controlling in the match. They went ahead 3-0, and I thought that was deserved as well, because it was a high-speed game they were playing, and they were nicely in control. But how quickly things turn around. That kickoff after the 3 points, and then a couple of phases later, and Anthony Watson. Well, we've all seen Anthony Watson before, but goodness me, he has the step-off speed of probably the fastest man in world rugby. Just how quickly he can go from in front of you to past you is ridiculous. He stood up Bryce Doolan comprehensively to score the first try for England, completely against the run of play. Just a step off his left foot and just burn off Doolan, show him no chance at all to score a great try in the finish. It was an outstanding start for England to get back in the game, and then just minutes later he did it again. Anthony Watson, pretty much almost a similar kind of thing. Got some free space, a lot more space this time obviously, but just his speed off the mark, bolting for the line, and another extremely good finish from Anthony Watson. He is surely a starter for England come World Cup time. He is probably their best finishing back they have. I think Johnny May was not quite on the money in that match, but I think Anthony Watson was superb. After that, I think France lost their way. I think they were rattled massively after those 2 superb tries from Watson, and that was only, you know, just about 20 minutes into the game after they started so well, and then the English just kept controlling the game. We saw Burgess put in another massive hit, and he was looking super on defence. The tackle count was massive. The tackle count was 54-15 England. England made 54 tackles to France's 15. That showed you how dominant France were in the opening 20 minutes. Yet, they scored those 2 tries and they just looked so good, England, when they had the opportunity in the back line. And then it all went a bit pear-shaped as Burgess just made a silly mistake. They got penalised, England. A quick tap was taken, and running past Burgess, who was still pretty much up where the tap was taken, massively offside, just put the arm out, took a sneaky little swipe at the man who took the tap, and, got himself a yellow card. It was silly, it was not very clever, and he paid the price, getting a yellow card right before halftime. So he missed the end of the first half, start of the second half. They went to the break. It was still a pretty close match. It was 12-9, 3 penalties from Parter and 2 tries from Watson, one of them converted as well. Into the second half, things kicked off, back underway, and I think France just deteriorated after that as well. They had ball hands, they were losing a lot of ball, dropping a lot of ball, and then a great try, all created from a crossfield kick all the way to the wing of Johnny May, and it was just completely perfect. There was no French defenders out there. A pinpoint kick that hit May right in the breadbasket, and he easily coasted over for the 3rd try of the match for England. So this was quite good. I thought England were playing quite well. I was impressed by Watson, of course, but Henry Slade was one that I haven't seen a huge amount of. I thought he played very, very well at outside centre. Controversially, probably not his best position, I'd imagine, from that performance, but I think England played quite well in the backs, especially. They probably struggled a lot more in the forwards than most would expect, but this was a very good French forward pack. Take nothing away from that. I think England held well, but I think France just had the upper hand, but it was that thing where normally you build your match up in the forwards and the backs decide how much you win by, but I think this game was complete opposite. France dominated the forwards, but it was the class of the backs to create from nothing that led England to their good lead at that point. Things got a bit testy and there was a bit of fighting going on, as per you'd always expect. A bit different from what we've seen in the Six Nations, around 55-35 or 55-33, something like that. Things changing quite a lot. Another yellow card went the way of Callum Clark. Foul play at the ruck is what that one was for. The second for England, is that a concern? 2 yellow cards to zip. They did play alright, but I think as the match wore on in the second half, France started to really assert their dominance in the forward pack. They really got things tight. They kept it very compact, and they knew they were dominating up front, so they kept it nice and tight. They kicked for corners, they drove off the lineouts, got the rolling mauls going, and eventually it paid off for them, getting the try for Drago from a very big forward drive off a lineout as well. There was chances blown as well. A couple of tries went astray, knock-ons to both sides as well, close to the line, just not grounding the ball properly. There was a lot of big chances from both sides. England blew a big one on the 69th minute, a massive long-range try, just not quite finishing off, and it's something that they may look to consider to fix up in future, because this game was getting quite tight and they didn't take the points on offer. The scoreline was 19-14, and that's where it stayed at the end. But at that scoreline, a lead of 5, you have a kick, a penalty, 30 metres out, just off to the right of the uprights. You take the points. I think England had to win this game. I think it could have been very detrimental if they didn't win this game. They didn't take those points, and in the end, they did hang on though, but it was a game of struggles. I think Corbacero struggled quite badly. I feel sorry for Callan Dickey, the hooker who came on, I think he was shafted a bit by his teammates as well. He didn't quite get the support he needed. The pack was struggling, and France really dominated the set piece and the forward battle between the two sides, especially in the second half. They controlled it all, and it was really a stalemate with France in control of the forwards, but they couldn't make any headway through their backs. I thought Scott Spedding was very good, the fullback for France. Gattoon showed glimpses of what he can do. Picamoles, though, was my pick for man of the match. And, of course, Slade and Watson were very good for England as well. But I think Picamoles was outstanding. He led and guided that team very well for France. So in the end, it was the English backs who got them over the line just. They won that one 19-14. An interesting match. I learned quite a lot about how England will look to play in future as well. Very much a lot to learn from England and France. I think they both look very good, and they showed that if they click like we see from Argentina, I think Argentina can beat anyone if they play like they did in that first match in South Africa against South Africa. I think the way England played, if they get their first choice forward pack back, they'll be very dangerous. They're not just a 10-man team anymore. They've got backs who can score tries and make line breaks. We've seen it before. Johnny May, he's done it before. Watson as well. They've got the ability. I don't know if Sam Burgess is a first choice starter for the English. They've definitely got more talent coming through the benches as well. When you look, 12 Trees was there. Cipriani come on for some time as well. I don't think Farrell was too impactful, which may be a bit concerning, but still early days. It's good to see Para and Tranduk playing together for France as well. And all in all, it was a good learning experience from that match to learn what was going on with those two sides. So there was one match remaining to watch through, and that started just after about 40 minutes after the French-English game, which for a while there was two matches going on, which was a bit hard to follow, but we made do. I made do. So it was South Africa versus Argentina. It was a chance for redemption for the Springboks, and when I saw the squads, saw the teams coming out, I thought, I had a funny feeling South Africa were going to take this one, but when I saw the changes Argentina had made, namely no Hertza and no Hernandez, they're the big ones for me. I think they single-handedly guided Argentina to that win last week, and when I saw they were missing, it really killed off a bit of the excitement for that match, because I thought South Africa all day long were just going to control this one, and there's no X-factor, no control on the forwards from the Argentinians. So what I noticed, first thing about this match was both teams played in white. Argentina with the blue and white, the hoops, and South Africa played in their away strip. What idiot decided that? South Africa play, I know they were away, which I can understand, granted, but why would you put them in their away strip unless they clash? I think it should be you play in your home strip unless your strips clash. The All Blacks always play in black unless they're away and they clash. That's the only time they go to the whites. South Africa, if they are playing in the away, they should play in their home strip unless it clashes. If they're playing another team in green, then they go to the whites. It was ridiculous to see who was actually playing for who, because the blue on the Argentinian kit is very watered down, very light. Faded kind of blue, and it was very difficult to tell from long out shots just who was who and what was going on. So I thought that was a bit of a mistake. I think South Africa should have definitely been in the green for that match as well. The game started off, and I think Wanimov had a fantastic chance to score the first try very early on. It was almost an instant replay of what we seen last week as well. He was fantastic. The only player to score a hat-trick against the Springboks. Surely that's the only Argentinian player. I don't know if that's fully 100% true, but to be the only player as well, which is a massive stat if that is true as well. South Africa did get into their work though, and they've started to get the dominance up front, which is what I feared may happen against the Argentinians without the likes of Hertza as well, and a few other new names in that pack. They had a new-looking blindside flanker as well. He was, I haven't seen him before. That was Lizana. He was good around the field, I thought, but the absence in the pack may have cost him a bit. They had Makomi coming into the second row as well, but they didn't get the dominance in the forward pack that they would have really liked. Pienaar could have scored the opening try for the Springboks, the opening try of the match, but he dropped the ball right on the line. It was such an agonising try to almost see. In the end, he spilled that ball clean, and that was the best chance. A superb tackle to force that ball to come free. So as the match wore on, the first try was scored from a simple short side play using Brian Habana, but I do think that was lucky, because I think I didn't see a replay of it, but it looked like Ruben Pienaar knocked the ball on as he was picking it out of the ruck before that play to Habana to score the opening try. You know, picking it here's a bit here, but it's stuff can we afford to see at the Rugby World Cup. Habana scored the try, and I think that really was the start of the end for the Argentinians. Involvo, what a try this was from Involvo. A spectacular, spectacular try. What an amazing run, and what a spectacular finish. Once again, I looked back at that try and thought, was there a forward pass in the midfield from Matfield? Again, didn't see a decent replay of it to know for sure, but again, I was questioning what was being missed there. Was that really a try? I felt a bit for Argentina. That could have been very close in that match, but two tries that, to me, had a bit of question marks without seeing it. Of course, a replay could conclusively show that both those tries were legit, but the questions not even being asked at all. So it's a bit of a shame for Argentina, but South Africa were dominating the game. You know, they were controlling the forwards. There was a big biffo as well just before the halftime break. I think Itzebeth was lucky to not get yellow carded for his little tussle that he had with one of the Argentinian players. Didn't quite catch his number, but, you know, up around the throat, the neck, and just giving the ball away, giving chance and giving a penalty away to Argentina, which was not the best for Itzebeth. He was lucky to not be given a yellow card. So we went to half-time, and it was 20 points to 9. South Africa leading that one by 11. They were lucky though. 2 tries, they could have not been scored. Take, you know, at least 10 points off of them, if not 12 or 14. It could have been a close match heading into the second half. Into the second half, things got back underway, and Lambie kicked things off with a drop goal, which gave me the ominous sign of that South Africa are always good at getting those droppies over. They always get the points when they matter, and they're always hot shots when it comes to the drop goals. Argentina had a huge period on attack though early in the second half. South Africa, I think, defended very well, controlled the game enough, and battled their way out of their own defensive area for a long period. That Argentina were feeling that they should have scored. It was a really tight second half. For the first 20 minutes, you know, from the 40th to the 60th, I think Argentina somehow found some difference to come into the game and show the ability to match the Springboks. It's something I think they've developed over the last 3 years. Argentina has been a side that hoped and dreamed they could win these matches, into a team that if they concentrate and get the things right, get the basics right, get their game plans right, I think they have a good enough team now through experience and talent that they can actually match these Tier 1 nations. And it showed in that first half of the second 40 that they had the ability to get into the game, show some attacking ability, control the ball, and lack of just finishing off a try. But we've seen last week that they could do that as well. It did go a bit pear-shaped for them as Lavanini got sent off for a horrible clearance of the ruck, just diving straight and no arms, pretty much leading with the head, smacking straight into a player on top of the ruck. He got a yellow card. It may seem at that point that for Argentina, that was it. That was curtains. A man down. No chance at all for them whatsoever. It didn't turn out that way though, as they fought hard and they did very well. They probably played better when they had Lavanini off of a yellow card, and they held their own. They controlled the ball and they starved South Africa of the ball when they had a man down, which is a great tactic if you can do it. That's the question, but they did do it, and they did it very, very well indeed. South Africa were dominating the forwards though. The scrums were working perfectly for them, and bar their mistakes, they were looking very, very good. I think Glenn Jackson, the referee, I'll mention this probably the first or second time I've ever mentioned a referee. I thought he had a good match. He controlled it quite well. He was very vocal in what he was saying as well, and he controlled the game. It was fairly fair. Maybe missed a few things like I mentioned earlier, but in his control of the match, the game was kept nicely calm. Things were all in order for most of the game. I think Argentina, I'll go back to it again, I just think they missed that attacking flair of Hernandez. I think with Sanchez there just wasn't quite the same as we saw last week, which was a shame. And then to finish with, why are the match clocks wrong? Glenn Jackson added 2 minutes on to the extra on top of the 80 minutes just because the match clock was different to his clock. So, that's things that shouldn't really happen, but no real big deal there. The match finished in a messy situation. The whole half was a lot messy. It was a lot tighter, though. I think that's why. It's because Argentina did show up in the second half, and they did definitely put the pressure back on the South Africans. And if they played a full match like that, it could have been quite different. It was 20 points to 9 at half time. Full time was 26-12. So, both teams only added penalties, 2 to South Africa, 1 to Argentina. That's a good close match. If they didn't get those 2 tries, within a few minutes of each other, it could have been quite an interesting match at Buenos Aires. As it was quite a good game. I think Argentina showed once again that they are capable of footing it with the best teams in the Southern Hemisphere and with Tier 1 nations in the rugby world. Them at the World Cup is going to be interesting. Expected them to finish second in the pool to New Zealand, and they can see them up against France or Ireland, which is going to be a huge match. I think Argentina are a good enough team to beat them if they can get their plans right and hit their straps nicely. They will definitely get in the quarterfinals, and I'm keen to see how far they will progress. Argentina look exciting to me. But that is it. That has been done and dusted. As always, talk for far too long. Blah, blah, blah. As always, always do it. Always go on far too long. 3 matches to cover. So, wow. Exciting stuff. I hope you all enjoy this match. Enjoy these series. I always try to keep them a bit shorter, but as you can tell, I always fail. We're over half an hour. Goodness me. Dreadful stuff from my part, but I always enjoy having a good chat about what happened, what I think about what happened, and what's going to happen in the future. So, as I said earlier on, thank you all for tuning and watching. Hope you enjoy this little series of chatting along about the rugby, and let me know, of course, what you all think in the comments below. What you disagree with as well from those games, and what your thoughts are heading into the big one, the Rugby World Cup. But for now, that is my time done and dusted. I am going to hopefully go and sleep, because getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday is just, it's not good, guys. It's not good, and no man should have to do it when he has to work on Monday as well. So thank you for tuning in and watching. Hope you're enjoying this, and I'll see you next time. Until then, take care.